If you were stranded in the vast ocean, how long could you hold on? This is the story of a 38-day struggle for survival in the deep sea. 3 soldiers were flying a reconnaissance mission, but during the flight they lost their way. The plane ran out of fuel and crashed into the ocean. They quickly gathered whatever supplies they could find, then painfully climbed into a lifeboat and waited for rescue. At first, they were optimistic, thinking help would arrive soon. But reality was much harsher. When the rescue plane finally showed up, they realized there were no flares or signaling devices. Out in the vast ocean, they seemed incredibly small. Despite shouting for help, the rescue plane couldn't spot them. They watched helplessly as the plane flew away. After discussing their options, they decided to try to save themselves, but there was very little to work with. No map, no fresh water, not even paddles to row the boat. The most serious problem was the lack of food. But in order to survive, they turned a piece of rope into fishing line, used springs from a magazine as fishhooks, and improvised bait from a scrap of cloth. They didn't have high hopes, but to their surprise, a fish actually bit. However, the fish bit through the hook and escaped, giving them a glimmer of hope. They tried again. 5 days passed, but no fish took the bait. They were parched and starving, and the communicator could no longer hold back his thirst. He tried to drink seawater, but the captain stopped him just in time, warning that it would only make him thirstier. They desperately hoped for rain. Maybe God had pity on them, because that night, it rained heavily. The 3 of them drank their fill, and began collecting rainwater. The water problem was solved, but they hadn't eaten anything in 7 days. At this point, the bombardier could no longer bear the hunger. He took out a knife, planning to stab a fish in the ocean for food. The captain immediately ordered him to stop, warning that if they punctured the lifeboat, they would all be doomed. But the hunger was overwhelming, and he couldn't listen. In a panic, he accidentally speared a juvenile shark. After a satisfying meal, they stored the remaining shark meat for the coming days. This food would get them through the next few days. After eating and drinking, the mood lightened considerably, but an unexpected danger occurred. The blood from the shark attracted a group of sharks. They dared not move, and the standoff with the sharks lasted a long time. Finally, they retreated. From that point on, they became even more cautious, but the sharks would still appear from time to time. Time passed, and after 15 days adrift, their stored food was completely gone. Unable to endure the hunger any longer, the bombardier raised a gun, aiming at the sleeping captain. Just then, a seabird landed beside the captain. The communicator fired at the bird, and the gunshot woke the captain, who rushed to catch it. But as he grabbed the bird, a shark suddenly swam toward them. Despite this, the captain refused to let go of the bird. Swimming desperately back to the lifeboat, the shark followed closely behind. At the last moment, the captain managed to climb aboard, and the shark passed them by. They survived for 20 days by eating the seabird. By the 30th day of drifting, they were so weak and emaciated, their skin had lost all color, but they kept going, slowly moving. In the evening, dark clouds gathered in the sky, a sign that rain was coming. The 3 of them instinctively began to collect rainwater. Suddenly, the sky rumbled with thunder, and the storm's huge waves capsized their lifeboat. After much effort, they managed to flip the lifeboat back over, clinging tightly to one another. After several hours of wind and rain, the storm finally passed, and miraculously they survived. But their strength was nearly depleted, and all they could do was talk and breathe. No one knew what kept them going for 38 days, but now they were at the brink of collapse. They began discussing who would die first. The captain even grabbed a handful of seawater, considering ending his life. Just then, the communicator thought he saw something. They followed his gaze and spotted a patch of green in the distance. Once again, they saw a glimmer of hope. Summoning the last of their strength, they made their way toward the land. After drifting for 38 days, covering over 1,600 kilometers, they were finally rescued. Throughout the ordeal, there was no cruelty, no infighting, only mutual support, reliance, and their unyielding will to survive.